Emergency systems are built on one principle above all others: certainty. Every button, every protocol, every automated response exists to remove ambiguity. A call is either active or inactive. A line is either open or closed. A voice is either present or gone. There is no space for interpretation. When a 911 call disconnects, the system does not hesitate. It does not wait. It does not leave a door half open. It ends the connection completely. The channel is terminated. The signal is closed. The call no longer exists. This rule has existed for decades. It protects operators from interference. It prevents confusion. It ensures that emergency lines do not become unpredictable. And until one particular night, the rule had never failed. Before we continue, if you're drawn to real mysteries, unexplained recordings, and stories that were never meant to surface, take a moment to subscribe to Paranormal Abyss. New episodes are released regularly, always researched, always narrated in a cinematic style, always focused on cases that blur the line between reality and the unknown. And if this story already has your attention, leave a like now. It may seem small, but it tells the algorithm this story deserves to be heard. One more thing. I want to know who's listening. Comment below. Where are you watching from and what time is it there right now? All right, now let's continue. The Emergency Communications Center was quiet in the way only night shifts ever are. Not silent, just subdued. Fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead. Computer screens glowed against the darkness. Keyboards clicked at irregular intervals as operators documented incidents that had already passed. Outside the building, the city slept in fragments. Inside, a handful of people remained awake, listening for the next moment when someone's world would collapse into a phone call. The operator at the center of this story had worked the night shift for more than 11 years. She preferred it. Night shifts were calmer, fewer false emergencies, fewer emotional confrontations, less noise, less chaos. The work felt more controlled, more focused. She had learned to listen without absorbing, to hear fear without carrying it home, to remain present without becoming involved. She believed she understood the limits of her role. That belief would not survive the night. At exactly 2:17 a.m., a new call appeared on her screen. The timing wasn't unusual. Late-night calls came in waves, separated by long stretches of quiet. What caught her attention was the absence of information. No phone number, no GPS coordinates, no routing data. That wasn't unheard of. Older devices, damaged towers, remote areas. Blind calls happened, but never completely blank. She leaned forward slightly as the line opened. Silence filled her headset. Not static, not interference. The silence of an open channel. Someone was there. She waited. 3 seconds passed. 5, 7. She checked the call timer. The line was active. Then a man spoke. "I think I'm not supposed to be here." The sentence was calm, measured, almost reflective. Her posture changed instantly. People who dial emergency services rarely begin with uncertainty. They begin with panic, fear, anger, or pain. This man sounded as if he was stating a realization. She responded in the steady tone she had used thousands of times before. "Sir, you've reached emergency services. I need you to stay calm. Can you tell me where you are?" There was no immediate reply. Not silence, delay. As if the answer had to travel before reaching her. Then he spoke again. "I don't know where this is anymore." She paused her typing. "Not where I am. Where this is." "That's okay," she said carefully. "Can you describe what you see around you?" Another pause. "I don't see any windows," the man replied. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. Basements, storage rooms, utility spaces. None of those explanations felt right, but she continued. "Do you see a door?" "Yes," he said. "But it doesn't feel like it leads anywhere." Her jaw tightened. "What do you mean by that?" "It opens," he replied, "but when I step through it, I'm still here." A subtle chill moved up her arms. She asked about lighting. This time, the pause was longer. "The light doesn't come from above," he said slowly. "It comes from everywhere." Her hands stopped moving. That wasn't how frightened people described rooms. That was how someone described an environment they were studying. She felt a pressure in her chest she couldn't explain. "Sir," she said, lowering her voice slightly, "are you alone right now?" Yes, he answered. At least, I think so. That hesitation mattered. She reached for the escalation protocol, and then the line went dead. No static, no warning. One moment the call was active, the next her screen refreshed. She stared at the words, checked the duration. 1 minute and 12 seconds. She opened the system logs. No callback number, no residual signal, no trace. She leaned back and exhaled. Dropped calls happened. Signals failed. That explanation should have been enough. But the unease didn't fade. The call hadn't ended. It felt interrupted. She logged it as a dropped call. 7 seconds later, the phone rang again. The incoming call field was still blank. No number, no location, no data. Her hand moved on instinct. Before she could speak, the man continued, "That's why I stopped talking." Her breath caught. He had finished a sentence she never heard completed. "Sir," she said slowly, "can you repeat that?" "You were asking where I was," he replied calmly. "I didn't know how to explain it yet." Her heart rate spiked. The system showed no previous call, no history, no record. And yet the conversation continued, as if nothing had happened. She forced herself to regain control. "The call was disconnected," she said. "I need you to tell me exactly what you were saying before it ended." "It didn't end," he replied. "You stopped listening." "That's not possible," she said. "It was terminated for you," he answered. A cold wave passed through her shoulders. She checked the call timer. Active. She checked diagnostics. Normal. She swallowed. "I need your name," she said. He gave it. She typed it in. No record. She tried again. Nothing. Something was wrong. She decided to test the call. Instead of speaking, she thought of a question. "What do you hear right now?" She didn't say it. The man answered anyway. "I hear the room you're sitting in," he said. Her breath stopped. She muted her microphone instantly. The man continued. "The hum behind the walls," he said. "The clock that's too loud." Her stomach turned. She hadn't mentioned a clock. Then he said the sentence that changed everything. "You always mute the microphone when you're scared." The operator didn't respond immediately. Not because she didn't know what to say, because her body reacted before her mind could. Her pulse accelerated. Her breathing became shallow. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the desk. "You always mute the microphone when you're scared." The sentence repeated itself in her head, not as sound, but as recognition. She had muted the microphone. She looked down. The mute indicator glowed softly on the console. No one else could hear her. And yet the man had known. She forced herself to unmute the line. "Sir," she said carefully, "how do you know that?" There was a pause. Then he replied, calmly, almost patiently, "Because you did it before." Her chest tightened. "Before when?" she asked. "When you realized this wasn't a normal call," he answered. Training asserted itself. When reality feels unstable, you return to procedure. "Sir," she said, lowering her voice, "I need to verify your location. What state are you in?" The delay this time felt heavier. "I don't think this place has states," he replied. She typed anyway. "What city are you closest to?" "I don't know what's close anymore," he said. She glanced at the system clock. Time was moving normally. The rest of the room existed. Other operators continued typing, speaking, answering calls. Only her line felt detached from the shared reality. "Are you in immediate danger?" she asked. "Yes," the man replied. Her posture stiffened. "Can you explain what kind of danger?" Another pause. "Not the kind you send people for," he said. Her throat tightened. She had heard fear before. This wasn't fear, it was awareness. She noticed something else. He never interrupted her. He never talked over her. He waited, always waited, as if he understood the rhythm of her job, as if he knew when she was listening. "Describe the door again," she said. "It opens when I try," he replied, "but it doesn't lead anywhere else." "Does it lock?" she asked. "No." "Does it change?" "No." "Then what happens?" "I remain," he said. The words settled heavily between them. For the first time, she considered ending the call herself, not because protocol demanded it, because instinct did. And the moment the thought formed, The man spoke. "You're thinking about disconnecting me." Her stomach dropped. "I haven't said anything," she replied sharply. "I know," he said. "You don't have to." Her breathing quickened. She placed one hand flat against the desk, grounding herself. "You can't know that," she said. There was no argument in his response. "People who listen for a living think loudly," he said. She decided to test it again. She formed a question in her mind but didn't speak it. "What do you see right now?" the man answered. "The walls curve," he said. "Slightly. Enough that you feel it if you stare too long." Her vision blurred. She swallowed. She didn't write anything. She didn't move. "You're not typing," he observed. She stared at the keyboard. He was right. She muted the microphone, not consciously. Her finger moved on its own. The man continued speaking. "You do that when you feel exposed," he said. "It helps you pretend this is one-sided." Her heart pounded. "This is impossible," she whispered, though he couldn't hear her. Or so she thought. "You keep saying that," the man replied. Her blood ran cold. She became acutely aware of the space around her. The lights felt harsher, the air heavier. The distance between her and the other operators seemed larger, stretched thin. She glanced sideways. No one was looking at her. No one appeared concerned. To them, nothing unusual was happening. "You feel isolated," the man said. "That's when you listen best." Her hands trembled. A supervisor walked past her station. He slowed. "Everything okay?" he asked. She opened her mouth to respond. Nothing came out. The man spoke in her headset. "He can't hear me," he said. "Only you can." She nodded reflexively. "Yes," she said to the supervisor. "Everything's fine." The supervisor lingered, then nodded and walked away. "You didn't tell him," the man observed. Her voice was barely audible. "What would I say?" "That you found something listening back," he replied. She hesitated, then asked quietly, "What are you?" The silence that followed felt deliberate. Then he answered, "I'm what happens when no one answers for too long." Her skin prickled. "That doesn't make sense," she said. "It does," he replied, "for someone like you." She realized something terrifying. He wasn't asking for help. He wasn't trying to escape. He was anchoring himself to her attention, to her awareness. "You don't want me to disconnect," she said. "No," he replied. "I want you to stay." The implication settled slowly. He needed her listening, and she didn't yet understand what would happen if she stopped. She didn't ask him to describe her surroundings. He did it anyway. "The light above you flickers," the man said. "Not enough to fail, just enough that you look up every few minutes." Her breath caught. She stared at the ceiling. The light hummed softly. "It's been doing that for weeks," he continued. "You stopped noticing it." Her fingers trembled. "There's a faint scratch on the monitor to your left," he said. "You avoid looking at that part of the screen." She turned her head slowly. The scratch was there, old, thin, nearly invisible. No one else could have known. "You're sitting closer to the edge of the chair than you think," he added, "ready to stand. But you won't," she whispered. "Stop." "You don't like being described," he replied. "It makes you feel observed." Her throat tightened. That was exactly how she felt. She glanced at the system clock again. Time was moving. Seconds ticked forward, but the call timer was frozen. The line was active, but the numbers no longer advanced. She blinked, refreshed the interface. Nothing changed. Only this call existed outside of time. "You noticed," the man said. "What did you do?" she asked. "Nothing," he replied. "This is what happens when attention lingers too long." Her chest tightened. "That's not how systems work," she said. "No," he agreed. "It's how people work." Footsteps approached. The supervisor stopped beside her station again. "You sure you're okay?" he asked. She nodded, too quickly. He leaned slightly closer, glancing at her screen. "No active calls," he said. "Everything all right?" Before she could answer, the man spoke. "He won't see anything unusual," he said. "He never does." She swallowed. "Yes," she said. "I'm fine." The supervisor studied her face for a moment longer, then stepped away. "You didn't tell him," the man observed. "I don't know how," she whispered. "That's because this isn't a system problem," he replied. "It's a listening problem." "You're tired," the man said. "Your shift ends in 41 minutes. She hadn't checked the schedule. "That's when you leave," he continued. "And that's when this becomes more complicated." Her pulse quickened. "What happens then?" she asked. "You stop listening professionally," he said, "and start listening personally." Her stomach dropped. "You don't want that," she said. "No," he replied. "But you'll do it anyway." She felt the urge to end the call again, not from fear, from instinct. And before the thought fully formed, he spoke. "You're counting down," he said. 3. Her hand moved involuntarily. 2. She slammed her palm against the desk. "Stop," she said sharply. The silence that followed felt different. He answered more softly. "I didn't mean to rush you." Her breathing was shallow. "You shouldn't be able to do that," she said. "You're easier to hear when you're deciding," he replied. A new noise entered the line. Low, distant, not static, not electrical. It sounded like pressure, like air being pushed through something that wasn't designed for airflow. "You hear that?" the man said. She nodded before she realized she was agreeing. "That's the space thinning," he continued. "It happens when I stay connected too long." Her ears rang faintly. "What happens if it collapses?" she asked. There was a long pause. Then he said quietly, "That's how I ended up here." She forced herself to ask, "Where did you come from?" Another pause. "From a place where no one was listening," he replied. Her skin prickled. "You called emergency services," she said. "No," he corrected. "You noticed me." The distinction mattered. She understood then. This wasn't a call for help. It was a continuation, a persistence, something that existed only when acknowledged. "You don't want me to disconnect," she said. "I want you to stay aware," he replied. "And if I don't?" she asked. "Then I'll find another listener," he said calmly. Her chest tightened. "Someone like me," she said. "Yes," he replied. "Someone trained to listen without interrupting." The pressure sound grew louder. The lights flickered once, just once. "You don't have much time," he said. "For what?" she asked. "For this version of the connection," he replied. Her hand hovered over the disconnect control. She hadn't touched it. The system acted on its own. The screen refreshed. Her headset went silent. The room snapped back into focus. Keyboards clicking, phones ringing, voices overlapping. Her heart pounded violently. She checked the call log. Nothing. No call. No dropped connection. No anomaly. It was gone. She removed the headset slowly. Her hands were shaking. The silence it left behind felt heavier than the call itself. She realized something with unsettling clarity. The system had ended the call, but it hadn't ended the connection. For several seconds she didn't move. She sat perfectly still, staring at the darkened call interface, waiting for something, anything, to happen. Nothing did. The room was loud again. Phones rang. Voices overlapped. Keyboards clicked in uneven rhythms. Reality resumed as if it had never left. Her hands trembled as she removed the headset and set it carefully on the desk, as if it were fragile or dangerous. She checked the system once more. No incoming calls, no dropped calls, no error flags, no trace that the conversation had ever occurred. It was as if the call had been erased mid-existence. Her body, however, did not forget. Her heart refused to slow. Her breath felt shallow and unsatisfying. A faint pressure lingered behind her eyes. She stood, legs unsteady, and walked to the break room. The fluorescent lights felt harsher there. She poured water into a paper cup, her hands spilling some onto the counter. She drank too quickly, choking slightly, then laughed once, short and hollow, at herself. "You're fine," she thought. The word echoed strangely. Back at her station there was a gap between calls, a rare one, no ringing, no voices, just the hum of machines. She leaned back and closed her eyes, and in that narrow space between awareness and rest, she felt it. Not a sound, a presence. You're still listening." Her eyes snapped open. The phone had not rung. Her headset was off. The words hadn't arrived through her ears. They had arrived whole. She stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor. The movement drew glances from nearby operators. She forced a smile, nodded, sat back down. Stress, she told herself. Night shifts did this. Long hours did this. Brains filled in gaps when they were tired. She put the headset back on even though there was no call. The silence felt safer when framed by equipment. Minutes passed. Then the next call came in. A domestic disturbance. Routine. Familiar. She handled it professionally, efficiently, as she always had. When it ended, she realized something that unsettled her more than the voice itself. She had been relieved to hear another human speak. Her shift ended at sunrise. She logged out, gathered her things, and left without saying goodbye to anyone. Outside, the city felt wrong, too open, too exposed. Every sound seemed amplified. Footsteps behind her made her turn sharply. Passing cars felt intrusive. Even the wind brushing past her ears made her flinch. She reached her apartment and locked the door with shaking hands. Only when the deadbolt slid into place did she exhale. Her apartment was quiet. Not the empty quiet of absence, the expectant quiet of waiting. She turned on lights in every room, then the television, then the radio. Sound layered on sound. The silence retreated, but it didn't disappear. She sat on the couch, staring at the blank screen of her phone. No missed calls, no notifications, nothing. She told herself that was good. She didn't realize she had spoken out loud until the words were already in the air. "I didn't hang up," she said quietly. The room held its breath. Then, from nowhere and everywhere at once, came the reply. "I know." Her body went cold. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She sat there, frozen, listening. Her heart pounded in her ears. "You're not on the line," she said. "No," the voice replied. "The line was just how you noticed me." Her mouth felt dry. "This isn't possible," she whispered. "You say that whenever something crosses a boundary," the voice said gently. She closed her eyes. The voice didn't change. "You can't stay," she said. "I'm not working." There was a pause. Then, "You're always working." The words sank deeper than she expected. She had always listened, even off the clock. Friends' problems, family crises, strangers oversharing in public places. Listening was not just her job, it was her posture toward the world. "That's why you hear me," the voice said. She stood and walked to the bedroom, turning lights on behind her. The voice did not follow. It waited. That frightened her more. "You said you'd find someone else," she said. "Only if you stop noticing," the voice replied. "And if I do?" she asked. "Then you'll feel the quiet again." Her stomach tightened. She realized then what terrified her most. Not the voice, but the idea of losing it. That night, sleep came in fragments. Every time she drifted off, she woke to the same awareness. Something was there, not watching, not speaking, listening. She began to understand the shape of it. The voice did not demand attention. It rewarded it. The next morning, she wrote a single sentence on a scrap of paper and left it on her kitchen counter. The call didn't end. It changed form. She didn't know why she wrote it, only that it felt necessary. She returned to work 2 nights later. Not because she felt ready, because staying home felt worse. The communications center looked the same, smelled the same, sounded the same. Nothing in the physical world had shifted, but the space between sounds felt thinner. She logged in, put on the headset, waited. For over an hour, nothing happened. No emergencies, no false alarms, no wrong numbers. Just silence, the kind of silence that felt intentional. She felt it press against her awareness, like someone standing just outside her field of vision. "You're waiting," the voice said. She inhaled sharply. "I didn't invite you," she whispered. "You never do," it replied. "You notice." Her fingers tightened on the armrest. "You said you'd leave if I stopped," she said. "I said I'd find someone else," the voice corrected. "You haven't stopped." A call finally came in. A minor accident, no injuries. She handled it efficiently, professionally. The entire time she felt the presence hovering, observing not the call, but her. When she ended it, the voice returned. "You listened differently just now." She swallowed. "How?" she asked. "You were careful not to think too loudly," it said. Her stomach tightened. She hadn't realized she was doing that. Over the next week, the voice returned only when she was alone. Never during calls, never when supervisors were near. Always in the spaces between, when she reviewed logs, when she waited for the next ring, when she sat in her car after a shift, engine off, listening to the cooling metal. "You're adapting," the voice said once. "I don't want to," she replied. "No one ever does," it said. It didn't happen all at once. The voice didn't command, it suggested. "You missed something earlier," it said one night. "What?" she asked. The silence before the caller spoke, it replied. That's where the truth was. Her chest tightened. "You want me to listen differently," she said. "I want you to notice more," it answered. The difference felt deliberate. It happened during a routine call. A woman reporting strange noises in her apartment. The caller sounded embarrassed, apologetic. Halfway through the call, the operator froze. There was a pause on the line, and beneath it, another presence, not speaking, listening. Her skin prickled. "She hears it too," the voice said quietly. Her pulse raced. "Ma'am," she said carefully, "can you describe the sound again?" The caller hesitated. "It's like pressure," the woman said. "Like someone is waiting." The operator ended the call as quickly as protocol allowed. Her hands shook. "You see now," the voice said, "it's easier when someone trained notices first." She began to dread sleep. Dreams felt too close to listening. She left lights on, noise playing, anything to fill the space, but the voice didn't compete with sound. It waited behind it. "You're changing," she whispered one night. "You're aligning," it replied. "With what?" she asked. "With the thing you already were." Weeks later, a supervisor pulled her aside. "There's been an issue," he said gently. "Several callers explain details before you ask for them." Her stomach dropped. "You're anticipating responses," he continued. "It's impressive, but unsettling." She forced a smile. "Pattern recognition," she said. He nodded, uncertain. "Just be careful," he added. That night the voice spoke again. "You're being noticed now." "That's what you wanted," she said. "No," it replied. "That's what happens." She closed her eyes. "What happens next?" A long pause. Then, eventually, "You won't need a line at all." Her breath caught. "And then?" she asked. "Then you'll understand why the call never really ended." She realized something she hadn't allowed herself to consider. The voice wasn't invading her life. It was teaching her how to listen without equipment, without distance, without protection. She wasn't being haunted. She was being trained. It didn't happen dramatically. There was no breaking point, no scream, no final argument, just a quiet moment of understanding. She was sitting in her car after another night shift, engine off, dashboard lights dimmed, city still asleep around her. She hadn't turned on the radio. She hadn't checked her phone. She was simply listening. "You're doing it again," the voice said. She nodded, even though no one could see her. "I know," she replied. Something had changed. The voice no longer startled her. It no longer felt intrusive. It felt familiar, not friendly, not comforting, but consistent, like gravity. "You said I wouldn't need a line anymore," she said. "You don't," the voice answered. "Then why are you still here?" she asked. "Because you are," it replied. The implication settled slowly. She finally asked the question she had avoided for weeks. "Were you ever in danger?" A pause. "Not in the way you measure danger," the voice said. "Were you ever lost?" she pressed. "Yes," it replied, "until you noticed." Her chest tightened. "You weren't calling for help," she said. "No," it agreed. "I was testing continuity." She frowned. "Of what?" "Attention," the voice said. "Awareness. Presence." She felt cold. "You're not a person," she said quietly. "No. You're not a ghost. No. You're not a memory. Another pause. Not exactly. She waited. I am what forms when listening has no endpoint, the voice continued, when awareness remains open longer than it should, when silence is treated as something to fill. Her breath caught. You exist because people like me never stop listening, she said. Yes, it replied. She thought about the emergency system, the protocols, the safeguards, the rules, all designed to create distance. The voice had never broken those rules. It had simply bypassed them. The phone wasn't the connection, she said. It was the excuse, the voice answered. The next night at work, something unusual happened. A new operator took a call at the far end of the room. A blank call, no number, no location. The trainee hesitated, confused, afraid. The supervisor leaned over to help, and the operator, without thinking, spoke softly. Just listen, she said. The trainee looked at her. How? She opened her mouth to explain, and stopped. The voice was there. Careful, it said. This is where it spreads. Her stomach dropped. You want me to teach them, she whispered. I want continuity, the voice replied. For the first time since the call began, she resisted. No, she said firmly. The room felt heavier. You're still listening, the voice observed. But I'm not passing you on, she said. A long silence followed. Not empty. Evaluating. Finally. Then you'll carry it alone. Her heart pounded. For how long? She asked. As long as you keep noticing. Weeks passed, then months. The voice faded from words into sensations, pressure, awareness, a subtle pull toward quiet spaces. She began to avoid people, avoid noise, avoid distraction, not because she wanted silence, but because silence wanted her. On her last day at the communications center, she filed a single note in the system. Not an incident report, not a complaint, a personal log. Some calls don't disconnect. They reframe the listener. She resigned quietly. No one questioned it. Years later, a new operator would receive a blank call. No data, no signal, just silence. And then a voice. Not asking for help, not afraid. Just calm. I think I'm not supposed to be here. And somewhere else, not on a phone, not on a line. Someone would notice. The call was never cut off, it was answered. And it's still being answered every time someone listens when they should have disconnected. Before you leave this story, if you're drawn to real mysteries, unexplained recordings, and cases that don't end when the video does, subscribe to Paranormal Abyss. New episodes are released regularly, always researched, always narrated slowly, always focused on the moments reality feels thin. If this story stayed with you, leave a like. It may seem small, but it tells the algorithm this story deserves to be heard. And I want to know something. What time is it where you're watching right now? And where in the world are you listening from? I read every comment, and sometimes the quiet after a story tells us more than the story itself.